Hey everyone, it's Chrono, and today we're talking about the Audeze Maxwell 2. Now, obviously this isn't a totally new product, it's a iteration of a headset that was already what I think was one of the best wireless gaming headsets on the market. And as someone who used the original Maxwell a lot, it was actually my daily driver for the past 2 or 3 years. What I really cared about here was, did Audeze actually improve the things that needed the most improvement on the original? And overall, yes, I think they did. That said, I do have one caveat for that statement on the Maxwell 2, so let's talk about it. Okay, so quick note before we begin is that this demo unit was sent out by Audeze for review, but of course they had no input into this video or the content that I make on the headset. So let's start with the big one, which is comfort, because the original Maxwell sounded great, but comfort was always, I think, the catch with that headset. It was fairly heavy, it had quite a bit of clamp force, and for me, the experience was just mostly tolerable. And, you know, the Maxwell 2 is still heavy, coming in at, I think, around 560 grams. That hasn't really changed, but it is just much more comfortable, like, on my head when wearing. The new suspension strap does a much better job at spreading the weight across the top of the head evenly. And clamp has also been reduced quite noticeably, which for me, that was a real difference over longer sessions, because over on the original, I would feel like the lower side of my jaw would start to feel some strain over longer gaming sessions. Another thing, although maybe not as noticeable, is that the pads do seem to be a little bit roomier and they seem to be a little softer in how they compress, so just overall contributes to the improved comfort. Obviously this isn't a much lighter headset, but compared to the original, it's just much easier to wear, and honestly I think that that's the biggest upgrade we'll be seeing here. Feature-wise, this is still a Maxwell. You get low latency wireless, Bluetooth, wired USB-C connection, 3.5mm connection, game chat mix, side tone, AI mic, noise suppression, EQ presets, pretty much all the stuff you'd expect for a modern wireless gaming headset. And I also do want to quickly say that the Audeze app is actually very good. It is fast, responsive, easy to use, and unlike a lot of other gaming headset software that I've used, it doesn't feel like like annoyance to use. I actually ended up using it a lot to control the headset, more so than the onboard controls, which is not something I say for most of the wireless gaming headsets I try. Now let's talk about sound. And the Maxwell 2 still has a strong tonal foundation, but there is, I think, a little bit of give and take here, where that caveat I mentioned earlier comes into play, because the bass is still extended and clean, with clear sub-bass presence and a bit of warmth through the mid-bass, but the overall level feels lower than before. I think people who really enjoy bass are going to be let down, but I actually really like that change, because you still get the low-end reach that helps build atmosphere and immersion in games, but it doesn't fill the mix as much, so it's just much easier to focus on other sound cues. As for the mids, they're still very solid too. You know, they're linear from the lower mids through the presence region between 3 to 5K, and the only thing I would note is that 3K does seem to be a little bit forward. To me, it could be a bit shouty at times, but I'm not sure if that's actually going to be a big deal for most listeners, since I know that I'm particularly sensitive to that region. So overall, I would just say you're getting very natural, very neutral sounding mids, just a great tuning. The treble, though, is where I do think that the Maxwell 2 is a little bit spicy, because there are some noticeable peaks around 6 and 8K. And the 8K one isn't as significant, you know, there is just a little bit of extra bite and brilliance there, but the one at 6K is the one that I think is important to note, because this is where I did start to hear just a tiny bit of like lower treble sharpness and a bit of sibilance. And it wasn't just something I noticed in music, but even in games too. So, you know, if I was playing Overwatch, which has lots of character callouts, there would be even some sibilance there, so it's just a tiny bit sharper than I would like. So there is a bit of a trade-off there. I think that the bass tuning is a little cleaner than before, but the treble is not quite as smooth as on the original Maxwell. The good news, of course, is that with a headset like this one that relies on active DSP, I think it's something we could see improve through like a firmware update. If like Audeze just went in and slightly tuned that treble region to smooth it out, I think it could just make for a better listening experience straight out the box. As for technical performance, it performs very well for a closed-back wireless gaming headset. It still has that slightly forward, intimate soundstage, but it's not, to the point where it feels claustrophobic. And what I really like about it is that it still has the excellent imaging and layering that the original Maxwell had. So it's very easy to pick out different sound cues and their directionality, even during chaotic matches like the ones you'll have in like Overwatch or Battlefield 6. Also, I do have to know that because it is a closed-back headphone, I really appreciate the passive isolation, which is excellent on the Maxwell, which is something I think really helps with gaming. If you're playing single-player games, I think that contributes to immersion. And when I'm playing multiplayer games, I find that just helps me focus quite a bit more, actually. And it's the reason why I didn't fully fall in love with the open-back Kithara from Hi-Fi, despite it sounding great and being very comfortable. Now, very quickly on the stock EQ presets, I think that they're actually quite useful with what they give you out of the box. So you have bass boost and treble boost, which are pretty self-explanatory. And then immersive mode mixes those two boost presets to give you a slightly more V-shaped sound signature. And it's actually a preset I ended up using a lot when I was playing single player games. As for competitive and footsteps mode, both of those trim the low end and they scoop out the mids to give a focus to like upper mid-range and lower treble sound cues. And I found that they could work really well depending on the games that I was playing. So for example, I would use the footsteps mode on Overwatch, but the competitive mode on Battlefield 6. And if you want to tune the Maxwell 2 further, I will leave my own custom EQ presets in the description for this video, both for the Audeze app and for Equalizer APO users on PC. So where do I land on the Maxwell 2? I do think it is a better headset overall than the original, not because, it's a completely transformative experience compared to that one, but because it does improve, I think, the part of the original that was, I think, most challenging for the majority of users, which was the comfort. And when this is a headset you might wear for 2, 3, 4 hours at a time, that is definitely something that you'll notice a lot. Do I think that Gen 1 owners need to rush out and upgrade to this one? Probably not, but if you are choosing between the two, if you're just buying into the Maxwell system for the first time, I would suggest going for the second generation one, because I really cannot understate how much better it is comfort-wise. And more broadly, I still think the Maxwell is still the best wireless gaming headset you can buy. The level of sound fidelity you get on these definitely exceeds what you get on things like Astro's, Logitech, or HyperX headsets. Anyways, that's all for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video or found it useful, and until next time, this is Chrono signing off.